Today we are talking about the updated FDA Module 1. Just disclosure note, I am recording this session and it will be put up on our website after the training is complete. If you are uncomfortable with any questions or potentially even your name showing up on the video, then I suggest you disconnect right now, and you will receive an email when the training is available on our site. My name is Josh Boutwell, and I have 15 years of a variety of different experience, and I founded this company, Aquila Solutions, back in 2010. Since then, we've been working with a large number of sponsors all over the world and helping transition people from paper to electronic, and now from early eCTD into the current versions. This is a quick overview of today's topics, and there will be time for questions at the end. So please, if you have any questions, remember them, and we will discuss them and anything else at the end of the talk. A quick overview of the new Module 1. It was released August 23rd of 2013. This actually, I had done this presentation shortly afterwards, and now since it's actually usable, I thought it would be good to redo this talk. A specification. This is a Module 1 specification, which means is the administrative information for FDA to FDA. In addition to the specification, we have validation requirements and an example document. Both of these also came out with the last version, but unlike the prior version, we actually have attribute lists now, which is a very different thing than the prior version of the Module 1 spec, and we'll be talking about that in some detail in this talk. And yes, this is a very significant change from the previous spec, not just the attribute list, but also how things link together, how they are presented, and in addition to a whole new area that now is eCTD compatible. So what are the technical challenges of this new module? So M1 version 2.3 is the first step towards RPS, which is known as eCTD4. This is the big thing about RPS is it's supposed to allow for medical device to be submitted electronically, which that will be another huge change. But RPS and this Module 1 are based upon a list of attributes, essentially a list of their roles and what they mean, of what's known as a DTD, which is hard coding. This section goes here, this section goes here. This is a quick example of what I mean by a list of attributes, an attribute list. This is pulled from the FDA's website. It's attached to the DD. This is about the different, the different contact types. So in this new module, you actually provide contact information, including phone numbers, email addresses, names, things like that. And these are the different areas that you can send contact information for. Generally, you want to have at least the regulatory and technical. Foreign company, you want to have the U.S. agent. Doing marketing materials, you have a promotional labeling person. And what is interesting about this is difficult it'd be to add another a contact type, say a CMC specialist. They would just release, instead of changing the fundamental structure of the module 1, they just updates the list with, say, FDA ACT 5. And display equals CMC and status active. You have another option without having to change the DTD at all. Deleted admin elements. This is the envelope portion of the module 1. We have the date of submission. This has been replaced with a different format. Or deleted completely because it's found to not be useful. The date is now derived from when the submission arrives in the gateway receipt rather than what you type in. The product information has been changed. This has changed and replaced with more detailed information, like the product name and stuff like that. The sequence number has been removed because we now have linked applications, which makes this much more. This is a very simple approach, the related sequence number, and the new approach is much more flexible and comprehensive. So, admin elements. We have the ID, which is the company ID, also known as the DUNS number. We have submission description. We have the contact information, which I showed you before. And we have the application containing files. This you actually link submits together now. This is where that's done. We can cross-reference our application numbers. So, for instance, if you have a DMF for your application, in addition to providing the letter in Module 1, just like you did before, you now include it in the XML as a linked submission. And a few other submission types, subtypes, the effective date, and the submission ID, or which is the sequence number. Some application changes. Instead of having all of our forms just treated like a typical leaf, move from the regular section of eCTD into the envelope section, the administrative section. And so this again lets the, if anyone who's deeply familiar with eCTD knows, there are a number of FDA forms that be submitted in the forms section of the FDA because there isn't an element designed for it. Now, we create in the admin element, we define the form type as 356H or 2252 or something along those lines, and we then the FDA can update the list, and all of a sudden we have a whole new selection of forms that we can now include. And unlike currently, where technically having attachments is a validation error, we'll now be allowed to have attachments. Now, we have regulatory activities. Again, this releases the related sequence number. And what it allows you to do is it lets you put together all the, in a dynamic way, all the sequences that are related, plus a description of why they're related. In each element, you have, just to use this as an idea, you have one sequence at a time, and you can identify the different types and subtypes of sequences. This is a much better, the FDA, a much better understanding of how this sequence is related to all the others. And finally, our biggest changes is actually changes related to this cross-reference of applications, as well as grouped applications. They're very similar. The cross-reference application allows you to, eCTD portion, the XML portion, link your application to another. Say, I use the example of a DMF, which is probably going to be the most common, but link it to your INDs and things like that. Other applications that you own that are related to this application that you don't necessarily have an authorization letter for. Now, permissions. These are very, very interesting. At this point, I'm uncertain about how useful they would be just because it takes a major rethink on how you approach applications in order to really use them. But it is an incredible step in the right direction. Very similar to how RPS is designed. And what this allows you to do is submit one submission and update all sorts of applications all at once. Example, I have a client that has two very similar products. And whenever they send in an update to one, they always send it in for the other. There's been very few cases where that hasn't happened. And by grouping the submissions, instead of having to redo the work multiple times, they can send in one submission on one application, and in that submission, tell FDA that this also applies to these other leaves in the other submission, in the other application. How if you actually plan it out right and utilize this capability, it really could simplify the maintenance of your application. Again, it does take a serious rethink on your workflows and how you interact with your application. Of course, limits. The biggest limit is that you must update all application and all leaves together. What this means is that if you have leaves that are linked in 3 different applications, if you were to update your 2 of those 3, the third one is no longer linked, and you can never link it up again. And if you update a leaf without updating everything that is linked together, you break the group and can't recreate them. If try, your sequence will be rejected. So you need to pay attention to this very carefully so you don't have an issue with sequences being rejected. Now, something that's really interesting with this, again, is a new thing. Marketing materials can now be submitted through eCTD. Up a couple of months ago, OPDP was not saying anything electronic. They are, and you have the option of submitting all of your marketing materials through your application, through your eCTD. In section 15 of Module 1, and again, it's based on a list of attributes. And just to remember, they can and almost certainly will change these frequently, or relatively frequently, as they find a need to. It's important that you keep up with all the changes, different options, and everything like that. It will be much more in many ways more work intensive to keep your application up to date. This is just an overview of the updated backbone for Module 15. They've broken it down into promotional materials for patients and for physicians. And those two primary categories. This gives you an idea of what's the different sections that are available. And like I said, there are a lot of attributes related with this that will change frequently. We have current attributes are material audience type. That's the patient versus the doctor. Material document type, which is it a flyer, is it a video, what kind of material is it? And the different just different attributes for various types of, if there's an item that needs additional information, it's defined here. About adoption. So the interesting changes, you can convert from what you have to the new version with no issue whatsoever. No warning, no nothing. It's entirely up to you. It starts with the 2.3. FDA wants everyone to start at sequence 1, not sequence 0. It's not technically a validation error, but they've expressed an interest in having everyone start at 1. So to keep that little change in mind. Nursing can start before your application. So you have a pre-NDA meeting. Sometimes now you will start your numbering. Your sequence number will be 1 when you submit your meeting request. By the time you get to your actual application, it may be 5 or 6. This is a critical thing. Just like paper to eCTD, once you start using the new module, the new spec, which is 2.3, you will not be able to go back. Once you start doing this, you can't go back to the old version of eCTD. Now we have some time before we are forced to implement it. The original spec was released on August 23rd of 2013. Optional use, which is where we are right now, is July of 2015, and the water cooler talk is required around July 2017. So while you don't have to start it now, you definitely start considering it and try to figure out how the best way to adopt this new system in your company before 2017. Something to keep in mind, I have a publishing software. We'll have to revalidate it, update it, and revalidate it. This is a change that is so significant, no existing software will be able to handle it natively, unless and I don't believe any company has updated the software, the current offerings, to include this module yet. So keep that in mind. You'll have to rework your workflow. Like I said, this spec really will alter the way you maintain your applications. You have to look at things on a much more holistic view across all of your applications rather than just one application at a time. And your publishers are even more important. There's a lot of back-end information that you won't necessarily be able to keep up with. All those the attribute values and things like that how things link together. That's what your publishers are there for, make you use them. Now, we're currently putting together a white paper. If you're interested, let us know. We have done some of these, and we can provide you training if you're interested. And we can also help transition and publish your eCTDs. That is our bread and butter. As our recommendation for this change, personally, I have recommended companies hold off. The reason is, this is a new system. People aren't really sure how it will how everything will interact, and there's just not much experience with it. So unless you have a real need, use some of the functions that are now available, say your marketing sequences, then you probably hold off for a while. If you're interested in converting, updating, let me know. I can certainly help you with that. At this time, do we have any questions that I am not able to address so far? If there are no questions, I hope you'll join us next week, or 2 weeks. We're discussing submitting marketing materials through this format. And even if you're not planning on doing it now, you can immediately, you can expect that in a relatively short period of time, the FDA will require you to submit all your marketing materials through your eCTD. And it would be good to understand how that will work prior to having to do it. Again, please join us. It'll be 1 p.m. August 28th. Thank you, and have a great day.